Today we don't have a guest speaker, but I thought I didn't push for a guest speaker because I've got loads of guest speakers who are coming and in the pipeline. But I didn't want to push for a guest speaker to be absolutely present today because I think we need to decide on the specific topic of the second mock conference. So I thought we could use this time, even if it's not a full hour, to brainstorm about what we would like to do in terms of topics. So I went to the link for the mock conferences, and in the agenda, the agenda is here. So the mock conference, the agenda is here. And I thought we could just brainstorm about the topic together. So we can do this in small groups or together. It's up to you. What would you prefer?
I prefer together.
Sorry?
Oh, what?
I would say I'd rather do it together, but I think you would say the
Together?
opposite.
Yeah, we can.
Small group.
Yeah, we're a small group. That's what I thought, but I thought maybe you would have more ideas, small groups. Perfect. Okay, so exactly like the first mock conference, which is recycling, it's just the word. We decided on what did we decide on? Plastic. You forgot already. Plastic and microplastic. Now for immigration, is there an angle that you would like to decide? Or so let's see who kicks the conversation.
I was telling the girls earlier today that maybe we could speak about the immigration crisis in the UK in specific.
That's one idea. Immigration crisis. And what did you mean by immigration?
Can you turn your microphone on, please, Danielle?
What do you mean by immigration crisis in the UK?
So we can link it to the Labour Party, compare maybe the policies of Labour Party and the Conservatives. We can talk also about illegal crossings.
Illegal crossings, yeah.
So, yeah.
We were also talking like in relation to that about, because it's a current topic in the European Parliament, the Meloni idea to make refugees. Yeah.
Albania. Yeah. So it was just to find a third country outside of the EU to send. So 12 people were sent, and actually, loads of money was paid to bring them back. So that's okay. So Meloni's idea. Okay, so this is all about I would say perhaps managing the migrant flow. Should I say this way? Yeah, and then maybe Meloni's idea. So choose a third country.
The same goes for the UK, maybe the Rwanda thing.
I didn't understand what you said, sorry.
I was just saying the same goes for the UK. So we have Rwanda for the UK, for example. And this is, I mean, what I meant by linking it to the either like Conservatives. So this is their political view, for example, on it. But the Labours, they have something different.
Katie?
Yeah, I just wanted to say obviously it's a big topic in Germany as well. And if I or one of my colleagues finds a German speaker, they could definitely talk about. There's a bit of a conflict between the big conservative party in Germany, who basically now wants people to be rejected right at the border, and the more progressive parties see problems with human rights, and also are wondering if that's legal. So that would be an interesting thing to talk about for Germany, I think. And then also in the context of the AfD, which is sort of the right-wing party in Germany, who want, of course, extremely strict regulations and have talked about people being mass deported, sort of like along the lines of Trump. So plenty to talk about, I think.
Yeah, the human imagination is very fertile in this field. here we've got you. You're talking about massive deportation. You said, yeah. And what is the name of the party that you were mentioning again? I
It's
can't remember.
AASD.
AASPD.
No, just one A, and then
Yeah.
F. Should I write it in the chat, perhaps? Hang on.
AS,
I write it in the chat.
AF.
AFD,
Okay.
like that. Yeah, correct.
Registering. Yeah.
And they were quite successful at the European Parliament election as well, like, you know, many other countries too. So
Yeah.
they're in a position, unfortunately, to push for these things.
Representation. Okay, brilliant. Emily?
I've got a little bit of a different idea, which I was maybe thinking could be a linking theme of how we could change the narrative or like views on immigration, especially kind of like your speech about moving by choice or by force. That's something that I'm very interested in. And I think it's something that's very relevant to us as well, because a lot of us have been able to move countries by choice.
So perhaps here we could have something about what is migration? Who are migrants? Because, I mean, for example, when Anton goes to Brussels and works in Brussels, he's a migrant, you know? So there are so many different forms of migration. So perhaps that could be a speech in itself, different forms of migration. Okay, very good idea.
I think related to that, there's some controversy because some people call themselves expats instead of migrants. And it's usually really white people from richer countries who do that.
I think expats and migrants are two different terms that mean two different things. An expat is for the country of origin, and the migrant is for the country of, you know, that welcomes the person in a sense. So yeah, but that's very good. So kind of social, you know, the social stigma behind, you know, behind the words and behind the status. Okay, next is Natalia.
Okay, I've come up with three. Relating to the Germany Conservative Party, I think itself the rise of the right-wing parties in Europe, because it has been also in Austria, in France, everywhere. Regarding the second point, well, maybe I should wait.
In Europe or in the world, actually?
Yeah, as well.
Because I mean, you know, America's elections are coming up.
Yeah, as well.
Europe.
Also, I was thinking, because I think what Maria was saying remind me that in Spain we have two very different kinds of migrants, which are like the ones who come from poor countries and the ones who come from very rich countries. And we have areas such as where she's from that you go to shops and everything is in German or in English. And well, the views are different, the way we see them. And it has also have effects on us, because the prices have gotten higher and everything. I don't know if it's really related to the topic, but.
So this is migration from the point of view of the residents in the country.
Yeah, maybe.
Which is quite interesting because, for example, with Lampedusa, which is a small island, where they had a lot of people, hundreds and thousands of people coming in, and the population of Lampedusa is tiny. So that could be perhaps sorry? In Lampedusa in Italy, it's the first island in Europe when you come from the south. So it's migration perspective. I don't know, perhaps here and
Or
here.
maybe just like how biased we are depending on
From
your color or your currency or whatever.
Yeah, from the point of view, perhaps
Of
here of the of the country residents, or of the locals. Yes, I think that's a good term. Yeah.
And lastly, how many people die crossing the Mediterranean, try to get to Europe?
Yeah. So here, perhaps from the migration perspectives, if we have it from the migrants' perspective, could we say that here we could talk about, the dangers of migrating, and we could have here crossing the sea, or or the desert, or there's been so many things, risking your life, risking your life, etc. Okay, I don't know, it's not nice to say etc. because obviously we're talking about very difficult things. But okay, all right, and Aretha.
Something that I think is related to, well, Hassan called it the immigration crisis, but I think it's perhaps an angle is the refugee crisis, because I believe that this is the moment in history where we have more refugees in the world, which is also something that I was thinking about, is whether we should focus on Europe or just everywhere, because I know that in Europe right now, I mean, we have many regional conflicts, and that's what much of the flow is coming in. But there's also a somewhat new discussion, which is climate refugees as well. So in Brazil this year, we had a massive flood that is like historically had never happened in the south of Brazil, and cities were engulfed in water, and many people just don't have a place to live anymore. And I think that's similarly, we're gonna see more of that with like hurricanes and extreme weather events and all of that, due to climate change, which is, well, also creates a flow of people moving to different places. And obviously also the war would be, I think, but that's a big humanitarian crisis, like how many refugees our systematic societal problems are creating each day.
We can also connect this to the UN, for example. It's quite, even the EU, but more the UN, UNESCO, all these kind of things as well. So the international institutions. Okay, great. Dana, you're next.
Yes, my topic is very related to that. So I was thinking about the why people move by force. So related to that, apart from climate, economy, your income, or having no income at all, and also terrorism and war conflicts. And each country has its conflicts. And then, economy and terrorism and conflict, I would say. Like, why do people move by force from one country to another?
Economy, terrorism,
and war. And also it could be religion persecution, religious persecution.
So here we could actually go back to the definition of a refugee, which talks really about the reasons of discrimination, of feeling for your life. So I could say perhaps a UN definition, so we know as well. Okay, very good. Okay, excellent. Katie, sorry.
Yes, I think you already mentioned the US, Danielle. I just wanted to expand on that a little, because obviously immigration was one of the biggest topics in the election campaign. And I think by the time we have the mock conference, the election will obviously be over, but maybe somebody could talk about the strategy of whoever wins the election, because that will certainly be one of the first things they do. and then also what effect that will have on the rest of the world, on Europe and so forth. And another thing that just came to my mind was Venezuela, the crisis there, and the fact that so many people, an incredible amount of people, I don't remember how many exactly, but have left the country because of the political situation there. So yeah.
Currency has gone, so for example.
Can you turn your microphone on, please?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay.
There's the peso, I think it's the pesos of Venezuela, the currency has really gone down and it's worth nothing.
Yeah.
There is, the government, so there's quite a lot, so again, I put the etc. here.
Just to add on that, sorry, I can't see how to raise my hand, but just to add to that, I was looking at something to do with Colombia, and because Colombia's taken so many of the people from Venezuela, and it's kind of created a migrant crisis in Colombia itself, and kind of we could look at host countries like Colombia, who are taking large migratory flows, and what kind of issues it's creating for them, and how they're responding to it, and how international organizations can help those countries respond to those influxes.
Actually, if we go back perhaps to hear the migration perspectives,
yeah,
maybe we can hear
could be
host countries.
Yeah.
Host countries, perfect. Okay, Emily.
I have two slightly different points. One of them leads quite nicely on from Katie's, which is about how the portrayal in the media and fake news. And then that kind of also leads on to my other point, which is again about perspectives. And something that's really striking to me is how a lot of people, like Dana said, are forced to move because of economic reasons. But for example, if I wanted to do it, if I wanted to move to a different country, well, I don't think a lot of people would have a problem with that because I'm not escaping from a war zone. I just want to benefit like my life. And I don't think, if someone were from a European country, I think, and they moved to this country, they wouldn't really have so much of a problem with it. So in terms of even within, for example, economy, there's still this force or by choice and very, very different perspective, even if it's for the same reason.
Okay, so where could we fit this? Which is again the migration perspectives.
I think that fits very well with expats versus migrants.
Okay.
Expats are those viewed as people who move by choice and that have a higher income, for instance, or like for instance, people who have an income coming from Germany that live in Barcelona and pay lower rents in Barcelona, but those rents will be higher than the locals. So that's why the locals are against this gentrification. And it not only happens in Barcelona, it happens in so many capitals and major cities in the world. Like in LA, for instance, there's like a whole neighborhood of homeless people, and they have jobs, but they cannot afford rent. So I think that's very related to expats' differentiation from migrants.
And there's digital nomads as well, which is quite similar.
Yes. Because I think they don't even have to pay taxes in the country they live at. So
I mean, countries encourage that. They're like, come and be a digital nomad.
yeah.
Brilliant ideas, really. Aretha?
I wanted to go back to the Venezuela Colombia thing because I was thinking of something else, which is, well, Brazil absorbs some of migration from Venezuela, but mostly from indigenous people. So also maybe has to do, they would fit into the climate refugees, but not exactly, because then indigenous peoples, that's a different discussion, but they mostly go to Brazil through the Amazon, which is mostly Brazil, but then it's in Colombia and Venezuela and Peru as well. And it's quite a difficult situation because indigenous peoples in Brazil have a hard time being recognized, and then there's very little social security, but there's also a protection needed for the indigenous peoples of the Amazon. So there's that as well, which I think gets mixed up because then Brazil has to take in indigenous peoples looking for protection, but doesn't really take care of those people very well. And mostly Venezuelan as well, which is a thing.
Okay, so we've got quite a few things here. I would like to add something, a term that's perhaps, if we look at refugee crisis, humanitarian, climate refugees, displaced people, which we haven't yet mentioned. And I would like to perhaps draw our attention to the African continent, because we haven't mentioned it here, but there are loads of displaced people on the African continent. I know there's a lot of displaced people in the Middle East and all these kind of things right now, but we've talked a lot about it already. So I think it would be nice to talk about the other parts of the world that we haven't yet mentioned so much, so we can learn a little bit more about that. Okay, so this, oh, go on, Dana.
When you mentioned that, there's lots of countries in the world that have a lower birth rate, and they have propaganda to invite people from other countries. And even I think in China, we are encouraged as women to go there, visit, and then marry Chinese men. Right. So, and also Korea is doing that because their birth rate is like 0.6 or something. And there are no kids in South Korea right now. So there are some governments that have a completely different view than what we see in the US or countries like Germany, but that they invite people from other countries to their country. So that's interesting. Huh?
Canada as well.
Yeah, so here we could say that we've got aging societies, so maybe migration as an added value, because you need people to work and to pay the pension schemes and all these kind of things. And so, yeah, for example, Japan is an aging society, but that they don't want migration. So that's interesting. To look after people, they prefer to have robots rather than a foreigner. So we've had the Japanese students on the course, for a number of years, and they've told us, they've talked quite a lot about this. It was very interesting. Katie?
Yes, it sort of builds on what Dana just said, because she reminded me of something I had to study for my life in the UK test recently for my citizenship application.
I'm doing it now, Katie. Katie.
Oh God, it's okay actually. The whole process is a bit of a nightmare, isn't it? Admin, terrible. Anyway, which is how attitude towards immigration can change during the course of history, because in the test it was talked about how in the UK, of course it was specific to the UK, how at some points in history immigration was actually encouraged after the Second World War, I believe, for instance, and then of course later it changed. So just to look at it from a history perspective would maybe be interesting as well.
Very good contextual introduction. So that would be great. Yeah, migration trends in history. Same thing with lots of countries, in France as well, for the automotive industry. Lots of people came from Spain, from Portugal, then lots of Italian and Polish people came for agriculture, for example, so yeah, absolutely. Great. I think we've got quite a lot. Perhaps it's time now to try to find some form of direction, perhaps. Just give you a few seconds and Any thoughts of how we could bring this together, or with a question?
I feel like perspectives is kind of the overriding theme that we've talked about the whole time. And I feel like it allows for subtopics, which is what everyone's like brought up.
I didn't hear the first word.
Oh, sorry, I think perspectives.
Perspectives.
Is like quite an overriding theme
Mhm.
in all of the ideas and allows for subtopics.
Yeah, so migration perspectives. I also liked what you said, actually, Emily, which is moving by choice or by force. Because we could have, for example, moving by choice, the morning, moving by force, the afternoon, for example. That could be a structure. But perspective is another way of doing it as well. Very good. Katie?
We could maybe put what we said about Italy and Germany and the US together as what are the current attitudes in different countries toward migration in the context of the rise of right-wing parties and people like Trump.
So we could have just a mock conference about the rise of extremism and migration, for example. I mean, Anton was telling me that the plenary session, this week and 2 weeks ago, it's all about migration. Everything is connected to migration, which is really scary in a sense. So the perspectives, we are going back to the perspectives, as you said. We could have also migration trends, perspectives, for example.
I have one other mini point as well to do with perspectives. But I feel like whenever anybody talks about politics in this country, like Brexit or COVID or anything, it's like it all comes down to immigration at the end of the day. Like whenever anybody in a pub and people talk about politics, it's always like, oh yeah, but the immigrants did this, the immigrants did that. So I think, well, yeah, it was only a small point.
Yeah. So again, the fake news and the role of the media and things like that. So I think we're starting to have something. We need to think about our consec speeches, so they can't be too difficult or complex, and they need to be generic enough so that we can use our symbols as well for immigration, emigration, migrants, So it looks as if this migration perspective could do this, where we could have a very easy structure, and then we could bring the countries, as you're saying, Katie, like the rise of extremism, of the right wing, extreme far right, so that could do it as well. Then from the perspectives of the migrants. So the purpose of the meeting would be to identify, the migration perspectives. And we could say that, for example, we are putting the thoughts together to create a report, for example, that was requested by the UN. I think it would be good to connect it to an SDG, from the United Nations. So if we go for the SDGs, SDGs UN. Okay. Oh, good. Read this. I've got it. I really have got. Okay, so we've got no poverty, zero hunger, good health, well-being, quality education, gender equality, sanitation, affordable clean energy. So we've got decent work. Here we've got industry, economy, climate action. So that could be one of them for the climate, water, peace, justice, and strong institutions, partnerships. Okay, so they are all there. So there's also connected to SDG 3, SDG 2, SDG 1 as well. So that could be good. Yeah. Aretha?
I sent something in the chat, because I think the idea of perspectives and force and choice can actually come together, because if we talk about all of these things, all of these perspectives, they have to do with what's by force and what's by choice, including if we think about even the gentrification aspect, because that's also kind of a forced migration, because if I mean maybe you don't change cities, but then locals are pushed out of certain areas, they're pushed out into well, the satellite cities around greater locations. So I think all of that, climate and conflict and even the rise of right-wing parties all could fall under that. So I put a suggestion for a title that could maybe tie things together. I put it in the chat. It would be Force and Choice, Perspectives on Migration Around the World. I don't know if that's...
That sounds good. To me, anyway. I don't know what you think. Maria?
Yeah, sounds great.
Asna, what do you think? You're happy with that as well?
Well done, Aretha. Great title.
Well, it's just a summary of everything that we talked about, but thank you.
But it's a skill to put it into such, I don't know, to put it into words like that. So anyway, I like it.
So are we settling down for this? I think Louisa just joined us and you haven't had a chance to speak. Louisa, welcome. So we just brainstormed, you know, about the topics that we could talk about. And it looks as if, you know, this particular title could capture, you know, the right context to talk about quite a lot of these topics. What do you think?
Hi. Yeah, sorry for arriving late.
Oh, no problem.
I think it's a really well-rounded title and summary of everything that you've got so far.
Excellent. So it looks as if we're okay for that. Yeah, brilliant. Excellent. So again, same thing. We've got to find some speakers and we are going to have 8 speeches. So you know the languages, we are going to keep exactly the same template. So I don't know if someone wants to be like head of speakers, head of agenda, head of interpreters, or, you know, if you want to start embracing some of these roles, you don't have to say it now. You can think about it if you want.
What is the role of the head of agenda?
So the role of the head of the agenda is the person who puts the agenda together. So you work with the speakers. And for example, not right now, I'm just putting together the agenda, but you would, with the speakers, you know, put the agenda together as a final document.
Oh, okay. But you will do it for the Migration Mock Conference.
No, you would be able. I mean, I'm here to help all the time,
okay.
but you could try to put it together.
Head of agenda.
Yeah, fantastic. Yes. Brilliant. So Dana. Okay, that's great. I mean, it's the first semester, so don't worry. You know, you only do it if you feel like it, you know, if it's not going to be too much for you. But we can have, as I said, a head of speakers. And it doesn't mean that you've got to find all the speakers. It's that you're coordinating the efforts, that's all. Head of interpreters, if you want. And head of technology, if you feel like it as well. And then we've got a head of event. If you feel tempted. Nobody so far? Okay, we can just leave it like this.
Maybe you could quickly explain what the other ones do.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. So the head of speakers, you're coordinating the effort of finding all the speakers, you know. The head of interpreters is more relevant when we've got all the booths in simultaneous interpreting, but you could already be there. So for example, anything to do with the interpretation, that we had questions this morning, Asna asked, you know, there are 2 interpreters, one in the booth and one, you know, in at the table. How does it work? You know, so you would be the person to go to gather this information. And the head of technology, I mean, I try to engage people with technology to use all the system here. you know, so that's, you know, how to use a system, how to go on Zoom, set up the interpreters on Zoom later on, how to record, you know, so you're just take, you know, you go around the problem of technology. So I'm here, I usually explain, we've got a document which is written already, which we've put together last year, but it's just to know that, you know, you would have a special interest in that. And the head of event is the person who overlooks the whole of the event. And it's the person that I mostly liaise with. And I would tell her, how is it going with the speakers, with the agenda, you know? So it's the person who overlooks the whole organization.
I have
Yeah.
a little question.
Yeah.
Is there like a brief just before the day? And for example, if there was a head of interpreters, would they kind of say, interpreters, gather round, you're going to have a brief on how today's going to go? Is that how it works?
No.
I mean, I guess we've already know what's going on.
Yeah, in real life, you're going to get a call from the agency. You're going, you know, you're going to have an assignment. You ask questions. They tell you how things are going to go. If it is a large team, there's going to be a head of a team, and who will give you these instructions, for example. So that's all. You will not meet beforehand, you know. If it is on a remote simultaneous interpreting, you're going to have what we call a dry run. So you meet maybe the day before or sometimes before the meeting, and we test all your technology to make sure that we can hear you well, your mic is fine, your headsets are okay, your internet connection is all right, you've got access to all the documents. So that's quite common with remote simultaneous interpreting. And that's all I can think about, really. Yeah. Asna?
How many conferences, mocks, do we have in total for full-timers throughout the
So in the first semester, you've got 2 mocks, 2 consecutive. In the second semester, you've got definitely 4, and sometimes we push up to 6. It depends on how keen students are. Some students love mock conferences. Others find them, you know, find that, you know, oh my God, it's a lot of work. You know, I prefer to work by myself. So when there's a strong collective, you know, in class, usually students like mock conferences a lot. But when it is very individualistic, you know, then you feel that students find it a little bit more cumbersome, you know, to have a mock conference. But I would say the mock conferences will be until May, but I like to have additional, but this is me being always wanting more, you know, I like to have mock conferences in June and July, because I find that otherwise you've just done the course, and June, July, August, you don't do anything. And then your skills really die out, you know, get very rusted, and you're ready to start work in October, and you haven't done any interpreting for 4 hours. And I find that the skills you get is like a little plant, you know, it's starting to look really nice, and then you stop watering it for 4 months, you know, and then it dies, you know, or it doesn't look very nice when you look at it again, you know. So there's a danger of losing your skills quickly.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, me too. And it's the same amount whether you're doing full-time or part-time, right? We have the same amount of mock conferences.
No, so part-timers have got fewer mock conferences because you're not doing the EUN module.
Ah, okay. So how much do we have next semester then?
You definitely have 2. And then the 4 others, they are to do with the EUN module and the placement module with the interpreter's professional environment module. Yeah.
And that then happens in semester 3 or 4 or 1?
Yeah,
1 and
2 and yes, 2 and 3, you know. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But officially, we're not supposed to have any teaching in these hours, you know. I mean, it's not even counted in my own workload. But I just play with what students want because I think it makes a huge difference. You're not going to have a big opportunity after you graduate to have this potential mock conferences, and all these mock conferences, they can go in your CV as well, you know. So it's I think they're quite important. Okay, great. So you can think about the other roles. If they remain empty, it would be good to have a head of speakers, for example. but if they remain empty, that's fine. It's the first semester. It's a collective effort anyway. And we've all agreed on the title. And here we've got quite a few topics that I think we can insert in this particular thing. But I think it would be good to do, for example, the morning by force, the afternoon by choice. I don't know how you feel about this, you know, but so maybe I could write it already. AM, so migration by force, and PM, migration by choice. And then the conclusion could be, you know, an analysis of the two. Yeah, okay. And Dana? Oh no, it's Maria, sorry, Maria.
The time for the speakers, we were supposed to look for them again, right?
Yes.
It said professional, sorry, it said people we know.
Yeah, so that's a very good point. If you're looking for professional speakers in the first semester, it's a little bit hard because professional speakers, they know their topic inside out, and they're going to be very thorough, very complex, you know, and that could be quite difficult for consecutive. And it could be a little bit discouraging, you know, if you have a very difficult speech, you know. Obviously, we can look at the speeches beforehand. But I remember, for example, Matthew, my son, did a speech about insurance. Everybody like, wow, you know, that was just too much, you know. And it was a recording. So all the specialists that we've had on, you know, on the mock conferences, they tended to be fairly advanced, you know. So that's something that you have to tell the speakers, if they are specialists, that it's got to be at a certain level. Yeah. Okay, Dana, sorry.
Yes, are we going to have a WhatsApp group as well for the second one? And when are we doing that?
Yeah. So normally we keep the same WhatsApp group for all the mock conferences. It avoids having so many WhatsApp groups. But maybe now, if you want to start talking about the migration WhatsApp group in the what do you call it, recycling, it will be too confusing. So I would suggest that you only keep the mock conference on recycling in the WhatsApp group, and perhaps we can use that shared folder to put our ideas and to work together, you know, and also our sessions together if you wanted to say something about it. Yeah. Asna?
Any tips? Because I feel like a bit overwhelmed now. I mean, this is, as you know, our first mock, and we already have started now preparing for the second mock, and I'm aware that there is only like 2 weeks between the two mocks, so I feel a bit overwhelmed, and I feel like I don't know how am I going to kind of manage preparing, working for both, besides the other modules, of course, that we have and other commitments. So any like tips?
Yeah, it's good that you share this because I'm sure you're not the only one. So, you know, welcome, you know, to the life of the interpreters. I mean, I was with my colleagues from the London Interpreters Practice Group in the, you know, in the organizing committee. We were together on Monday and we were all, I've got this conference here and I've got that. I mean, not me, obviously, but, you know, they were all just, you know, so the life of the interpreter is very much, you know, with a lot of different events that happened. You don't have just one event ahead of you. You've got different ones. You're going to see that after the first mock conference, it's going to feel completely different. That you will have, you've gone through the process, you know what to expect. The second one is built exactly on the same model. So right now, I would say the first mock conference always comes across as a scary mock conference and oh my God, you know. It's normal, you know, that's really normal. I would say concentrate on the recycling one. And you're going to have 4 tutorials on recycling, 4 tutorials on immigration. So also your tutors are going to take you through the topic, you know. But you've only got 2 weeks afterwards to prepare, but you have to start preparing before, because 4 tutorials on recycling we haven't had a mock conference on recycling and you start immigration in your tutorials. Does this make sense? So you will have your mock conference on immigration once you've done already 4 weeks of tutorials on immigration. So you're not going to be by yourself preparing everything. So also trust that you have that support to take you through this week by week. And I would, if I were you, I would look at my timetable, because usually when we panic, it's because we think that everything comes together and you're losing control. And I'm a firm believer of planning my time. So if you've got your time and you look at when you do what, rather than just leaving it to chance. So for example, for me, my Monday is dedicated to planning all my teaching for Tuesday and Wednesday. And also I'm working on looking at your portfolio of practice and giving feedback and so on and so forth. So that's my Monday. Then I do more research on Friday. But if I don't have time to do more research and I'm under pressure, I add 1 hour every single morning. So I get up an hour earlier and I just book 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour. And I like to work on this platform called FocusMate, as I said, you know, so I book a session on this platform and I work with somebody else and we connect and this other person that I don't know. Yeah, what are you working on? Oh, I've got a medical test, you know, I've got to learn all my, you know, medical knowledge. Okay, fine. What do you want to achieve in this hour? Fine. And my turn. And then it's silence and you work. And that's how I did my PhD. And believe me, it was fantastic. And it took me a long time to do my PhD. But once I did this, I wish I discovered it at the beginning. It changed my life because then you've planned your time for work. But because it's planned, you also have planned your free time. Otherwise, you're continuously thinking, oh my God, I need to work. I need to work. I haven't worked. Oh my God, this is guilt, you know. But if you plan your time of work, you automatically have got time for yourself. And if you think the mock conference on immigration, but say, oh no, it's okay. I've planned the Monday and the Tuesday and the Wednesday for this. So I've got 10 hours planned for it. You see what I mean? So it reassures you that the time is planned. Yeah. I don't know, maybe that doesn't make sense, but that reassures me myself. I've done it, you know. Katie.
I agree with everything you just said, by the way. I find it really helpful to plan my time as well, especially since I started this course, and I think I would completely drown if I didn't do that, and I wouldn't have any free time, as you say. In this way, I usually put my day into little sections. I do it quite spontaneously, maybe a day before in the morning, but it seems to work for now. So yes, that's very helpful. And what did I want to say? Oh, the speakers. One little question about the speakers. For German, both Louisa and I are trying to find somebody, but what happens if we don't? Because
I'm here. Don't worry. So if you're struggling, you know, with a German speaker, so now, for example, we're coming quite close, you know, to the mock conferences. You know, we can ask Roberto, sorry, to
oh great, yeah,
speech, you know, in German.
Yeah.
I can ask Linda. Perfect. You know,
I did already ask Linda actually,
and she said no, she's very busy.
No, she said she asked me for more info today. She hasn't said yes, but she asked more about the topics. But I also said to her, look, if you don't want to do this, you know, because you've already done it so many times, I understand.
Yeah.
But yeah,
but Linda's happy because there's German this year, you know, which we haven't had yet. So that's great. And we've got the ambassadors. Ask the ambassadors. That's what they're here for. They've got to give me 30 hours of their time to help you. So that's one of the priorities for them, is to participate in mock conferences. Yeah. Louisa?
Yeah, just because I'm sending out quite a lot of messages trying to find someone too. Is there like a limit, like on how many speeches per language? Will it just be one German because there's not many of us studying
Only
German?
one German, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Only one German. So normally there's no French or English, as I said, but because I really feel not French, yeah, French and English, because I really feel these are two key languages. So I have added them to the list. And so the chair, I think it's nice to have a language in the morning and a language in the afternoon. So we vary a little bit. So we can look at the language of the chair as well. So that can be quite good. Yeah.
But I guess it's always good to have sorry to just start talking without raising my hand. I guess it's always good to have a backup as well, for instance, right? And then because we do several mock conferences, if somebody says yes, and we already found somebody, we can say thank you very much, but we have somebody for this time, but would you be available next time?
Oh, definitely.
Something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And we've got the BA translation students. My experience of having them on and the MA translation is that it's especially the BA translation, they are better for a debate rather than preparing a speech. They get so confused, and I spend hours and hours with them on how to structure a speech, how to speak, what to do, what to say. So I'm going to invite them to attend for the first time, and then they will see what it's like. And then if they want to participate afterwards, it will be easier. Dana.
Yes, the second chair for the recycling mock conference, is it going to be Blanca again, or?
No, it's for the recycling. It's me. I'm going to chair in French in the afternoon,
Okay.
and Blanca is chairing in the morning.
Okay. Can I write it down on the
Of course,
agenda?
absolutely. For recycling, right?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
In French.
In French, yeah. Are we all okay? Then I think we've got plenty to start, right? Yeah, collective decision. We're happy with it? Yeah, okay, right. Let's close it. Fantastic. Very well done. Brilliant. As Blanca was telling me yesterday, oh, they are so good, they are so serious, they work so hard. And I said, yes, absolutely. And I keep on telling everybody, my students are working so hard and so good and making so much progress, that's so very well done, everyone. I know it's hard, but you're doing very well. Brilliant. Shall we close? Wonderful. Thank you. It sounds very painful.
Thank you. See you next week.
Thank you. Yep. See you next week. Bye.
Bye, people.